The bathroom was dimly lit, the faint scent of potpourri rising from the ceramic bowl on the counter. Lauren locked the door behind her and leaned against it, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. She had smiled through dinner, forced polite laughter, even thanked her parents for the gift card and clearance scarf. But now, the facade cracked. She pressed her palms to her face, the sting of tears hot against her skin. The Christmas card was still in her pocket, the lottery ticket tucked inside. $5 million. A fortune. She had thought it might bridge the distance, force her parents to see her. Yet tonight had shown her just how deep the chasm ran. She sat on the edge of the bathtub, the porcelain cold through her sweater, and tried to steady her breathing. That was when she heard voices drifting up through the vent near the floor. The bathroom shared a duct with the kitchen below. As a teenager, she had discovered it worked like an unintentional intercom. Tonight, it betrayed secrets she was never meant to hear. Stephanie's voice rang first bright and triumphant. "The car is absolutely perfect. I can't believe you guys did this for me." Her mother laughed softly. "We've been planning it for months. You deserve it, darling." Then Stephanie's tone shifted conspiratorial. "Speaking of money, I found the perfect condo. 3 bedrooms, waterfront view. It's in that exclusive new development." Lauren froze, holding her breath. Her father's voice followed, measured but indulgent. "That sounds expensive. It's around $700,000, Stephanie admitted. "I have some saved for the down payment, but I was hoping you might help like you did with my first place." There was a pause. Lauren closed her eyes, willing herself not to hear what came next. Her father said firmly, "We'll make it work. We always do for you. Family supports family." Lauren's heart clenched. Stephanie's voice lowered, dripping with sweetness. "Thanks, Daddy. I knew I could count on you. Unlike some people who never seem to get their act together." Lauren's nails dug into her palms. She didn't need a name. She knew who some people meant. Her mother sighed. "I do worry about Lauren, still in that tiny apartment, still at that same company. No serious relationship, no real assets. Where did we go wrong with her?" Her father's reply cut deeper than any blade. "Some people just lack ambition. She's always been content with mediocrity." Mediocrity. The word echoed in Lauren's skull. Her chest tightened as memories clawed their way forward. The night she begged for art classes and was told it was too expensive. The years of working double shifts to pay tuition, while Stephanie's was covered in full. The quiet pride she'd felt winning a national design award, only for it to be brushed aside at the dinner table. All of it condensed into this single verdict: mediocre. Her mother added softly, "She was always stubborn about following her own path. Never wanted our guidance." Lauren bit her lip until she tasted blood. She had mistaken their absence for respect, convinced herself that independence was something they admired. But here in their private words, the truth surfaced. It wasn't admiration. It was disappointment. In families where favoritism reigns, the lesser child often internalizes neglect as personal failure. They work harder chasing approval that never arrives, believing love must be earned. But favoritism isn't rational. It's a narrative parents tell themselves to justify unequal affection. Hearing it confirmed destroyed the illusion. For years, Lauren had clung to scraps of hope. Now she knew it had never been about her effort. It had always been about their choice. Lauren pulled out the card, staring at the corner of the lottery ticket peeking through. $5 million. Enough to wipe out debt, to buy a home, to start a business. Enough, she had thought, to finally make them proud. But as the voices drifted through the vent, she realized the truth. Money would not change their hearts. If she handed them this fortune, they would funnel it into Stephanie's condo, her career, her perfect life. And Lauren. She would remain the afterthought, the daughter who lacked ambition. Her hands shook. She pressed the card back into her wallet, her decision hardening like ice. The voices below continued muffled but cruel. Stephanie joked about Lauren's old car, about her boring job. Their parents chuckled softly as though it were harmless teasing. Lauren stood gripping the sink, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were red, her cheeks streaked with tears, but beneath the grief flickered something new clarity. She whispered to herself, "No amount of money will change this. I will never be enough for them." And in that moment, she knew the lottery ticket would never be theirs. She splashed cold water on her face, wiped the tears, and forced her expression into composure. When she rejoined the family, her mother smiled absently. "There you are. We're about to have Christmas breakfast. Could you set the table again?" "Of course," Lauren said. Her voice was steady, though inside her heart had shattered. As she laid out the plates, she glanced at her sister, glowing with the thrill of her new BMW and the promise of a condo. Their parents hovered close, their pride palpable. Lauren's smile remained fixed, brittle, but unbroken. The ticket in her pocket weighed heavy, not as hope, but as a promise she made to herself. This fortune would not be wasted on people who had already decided she was unworthy. That Christmas morning, Lauren's wound reopened wider than ever. But beneath the pain, a seed had been planted, the seed of a life built away from their approval, a life where her worth would no longer be measured against her sister's shadow. Lauren left the bathroom that Christmas morning with a brittle smile plastered on her face. To anyone watching, she looked calm, even composed. Inside, though, she felt like glass fractured one wrong touch away from shattering. The winning ticket was still tucked inside her wallet. Every step she took, she felt its weight pressing against her ribs like a secret heartbeat. At breakfast, her parents laughed with Stephanie about the BMW. The car keys glittered on the counter beside her coffee cup. Lauren buttered her toast silently, each scrape of the knife loud in her ears. Nobody asked where she had been. Nobody noticed the way her hands trembled. She had planned to give them the ticket, had imagined it, rehearsed it, dreamed it. But after what she had heard, mediocrity, lack of ambition, disappointment, she knew. Giving them $5 million would not change how they saw her. It would only give them more resources to pour into Stephanie. So she swallowed her longing, swallowed her grief, and made her choice. The ticket would remain hers. By late morning, she excused herself. "I've got work to catch up on," she lied. Her father barely glanced up from the newspaper. "Always working," he muttered. Stephanie smirked. "Drive safe, sis. Hope your old car makes it home." Her mother kissed her cheek absently, already half-focused on clearing dishes. Lauren hugged them each in turn, quick and perfunctory, then stepped out into the cold. Snow crunched under her boots. The BMW gleamed in the driveway like a monument to favoritism. She climbed into her battered Toyota, turned the key, and drove away. For the first 20 miles, she cried. Silent tears blurred the road, forcing her to pull over at a scenic overlook. Below the town, spread out in a picture-perfect holiday postcard, rooftops dusted with snow smoke, rising from chimneys, families gathered in warmth. Lauren pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and whispered, "I'll never belong there." Not really. But then her hand brushed her wallet. The ticket. The $5 million waiting to be claimed. A different whisper followed. "Maybe I don't need to." The next few days passed in a haze. Christmas lights still glowed in windows, but for Lauren, the season had already shifted. While others toasted to family, she researched obsessively. How do you claim a lottery jackpot without revealing your identity? Could she remain anonymous in her state? What steps should she take to protect herself? The internet became her lifeline. She read legal blogs, watched interviews, scribbled notes into a notebook she titled Plan B. The most important discovery, she could create a trust. The trust not Lauren Thompson would be listed as the official winner. On December 27th, she called a lawyer whose name had appeared on multiple recommendation lists. She introduced herself simply as a client with a sensitive matter. The receptionist didn't sound surprised. Apparently, lottery winners were not uncommon in that office. 2 days later, Lauren sat in a sleek downtown office clutching her purse like it contained her soul. Which, in a way, it did. The lawyer, a calm woman in her 40s, examined the ticket carefully. "Yes, this is legitimate," she said, her tone professional but kind. "Congratulations." Lauren's voice trembled. "I don't want my name out there. I don't want anyone, especially my family, to know." "Then we'll set up a blind trust," the lawyer explained. "You'll remain anonymous. The prize will be claimed through the trust's name. No one has to know it's you." For the first time since scratching the ticket, Lauren exhaled. Relief flooded her veins. The lawyer slid a contract across the table. Lauren signed it with hands that still shook. By the first week of January, the funds were real, transferred into accounts carefully managed by a financial advisor. It was official, she was wealthy. When the news broke that the winning ticket had been claimed by an anonymous trust, her parents called. "Can you believe it?" her mother exclaimed. $5 million right in your neighborhood. Imagine if that had been you." Lauren forced a laugh. "Yeah. Crazy, huh?" Her father sighed wistfully. "Would have solved all your money troubles. Sometimes people get lucky like that." She hung up soon after, her chest tight. They had no idea, and they never would. Keeping the secret felt both empowering and isolating. She longed to tell someone, anyone, about the truth, but trust was dangerous, and she wasn't willing to risk it. So she carried the knowledge alone, like a second skin. In February, Lauren quietly paid off her student loans in full. She watched the balance drop to zero, tears streaming down her face. 10 years of weight vanished in a single keystroke. She didn't tell her parents. Next, she began planning her exit from the design agency. She still showed up every day, still met deadlines, but at night, she built her own portfolio website. She reached out to contacts she had nurtured, planting seeds for future freelance work. She scouted apartments, eventually moving into a place twice the size of her old one. It wasn't flashy, deliberately so, but it had light space and a small alcove she converted into an art studio. She enrolled in advanced design classes she had once deemed too expensive. She bought professional-grade supplies without guilt. For the first time, creativity felt like joy rather than compromise. And still, she told no one about the money. Keeping secrets, especially transformative ones, carries both cost and benefit. For Lauren, secrecy was survival. Revealing the truth would have drawn her family closer, but only to exploit her. By hiding it, she protected both her wealth and her fragile sense of independence. Yet secrecy also deepened her loneliness. With no one to share her triumph, each victory felt muted. She could buy comfort, but she couldn't buy connection. This paradox defined her new life, richer than ever, yet still aching for recognition. By March, Lauren made her move. She handed in her resignation at the agency, citing creative differences. Her boss looked shocked, but didn't argue. She left the building with her head high, sunlight warming her face. That evening, she toasted herself with champagne, not the cheap bottle she once bought in desperation, but a good one, chilled and poured into real crystal glasses she had purchased with ease. She raised the glass to the empty room. "To freedom," she whispered. Her parents continued to call occasionally, their conversations predictable praise for Stephanie, complaints about bills, then a quick inquiry into Lauren's life. "I'm freelancing now," she told them once. Her mother sounded skeptical. "That's risky, isn't it?" "I'm doing fine," Lauren replied evenly. Well, as long as you're paying your loans, her father added. They're paid off. A pause. All of them. How Lauren smiled faintly. Budgeting. Hard work. They didn't press further, but she could hear disbelief in their voices. For the first time, it didn't matter. One evening, Lauren sat in her new apartment sketching at her desk while snow fell softly outside. A candle flickered, casting warm light over her work. The city hummed below, but in her space there was peace. She leaned back, pencil still in hand, and let herself feel the enormity of it all. She was free. Free of debt, free of the desperate need for parental approval, free to build the life she wanted. The ticket had been luck. But what she did with it, that was choice. And she had chosen silence, independence, and the slow, deliberate construction of a life on her own terms. It wasn't the recognition she once craved, but it was something better. It was hers. The first morning after resigning from her agency job, Lauren woke to sunlight streaming through her new apartment's tall windows. For the first time in years, she didn't dread the day. She brewed fresh coffee, sat at her desk, and whispered aloud, "This is mine. All of it. Mine." On the wall hung a corkboard she had filled with sketches, ideas for logos, mock-ups of packaging. Scribbled in the corner were 3 words, Thompson Creative Studio. It wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a blueprint. Lauren had been preparing for this step in secret, slowly collecting contacts, saving client emails, and building a portfolio website. Now, with her financial safety net, she could take the leap. She registered her business name, designed her own minimalist logo, and bought domain rights for a sleek website. Each small task felt monumental, like laying bricks for a house she thought she'd never get to build. Her first clients came from word of mouth, a bakery needing rebranding, a tech startup seeking clean visuals, a friend of a friend launching a podcast. She poured her soul into each project, no longer constrained by a boss who stole credit. When the bakery owner cried upon seeing her new logo, "It finally feels like us," Lauren realized she had found more than work. She had found impact. With time and money at last on her side, Lauren signed up for advanced art classes at a community studio. She hadn't touched formal instruction since her mother dismissed her childhood request for $75 lessons. Walking into the airy studio for the first time, she felt nervous like a child sneaking into a place she didn't belong. But the smell of paint, the clatter of brushes, the hum of creativity wrapped around her like a long-lost embrace. Here, nobody knew about Stephanie or the BMW or the gift cards. They only knew Lauren, the woman who sketched with focus, who asked thoughtful questions, who encouraged classmates with a kind smile. For the first time, she wasn't the forgotten sister. She was simply an artist. It was in these classes that Lauren met Natalie, a pediatric nurse with a love for watercolor. Natalie's laugh was infectious, her kindness effortless. One evening after class, she invited Lauren to grab pizza. Over slices dripping with cheese, Natalie asked, "So why design?" Lauren hesitated, then told her story. Not the painful family saga, but the passion for creating the thrill of turning ideas into visuals that spoke without words. Natalie listened with genuine interest. "That's incredible. You light up when you talk about it." Lauren blinked, startled. No one had ever said that to her before. Friendship bloomed quickly. They exchanged playlists, painted together on weekends, swapped stories about difficult clients and stubborn patients. For Lauren, it was a revelation connection that didn't demand she prove herself worthy first. Through Natalie, Lauren was introduced to a wider circle. Other nurses, artists, hikers, people with mismatched careers but aligned hearts. They welcomed her without judgment, without comparison. At dinners in cramped apartments and hikes through snowy trails, Lauren laughed freely. No one compared her to Stephanie. No one called her mediocre. They asked about her, her work, her dreams, her favorite books. One evening, sitting by a campfire after a group hike, someone asked, "What's your family like?" The old ache flared. Lauren stared into the flames before answering softly, "Complicated. But I'm building a new one here." Heads nodded, no judgment. Someone passed her a mug of cocoa warm against her hands. In that moment, she realized family wasn't just blood. Family was the people who chose you and whom you chose in return. Psychologically, this shift was monumental. For years, Lauren's self-worth had been shackled to her parents' approval. Every achievement was an offering she hoped would buy love. But here, with her chosen family, worth wasn't transactional. It was intrinsic. Each friendship, each smile, each shared story carved away at the belief that she was invisible. She began to see herself through their eyes, capable, creative, valuable. By spring, Thompson Creative Studio had grown beyond her expectations. She hired a part-time assistant, then another designer. Clients praised her for her vision, for her ability to capture not just aesthetics, but identity. She furnished her new office with clean white desks, plants basking in sunlight, and walls covered in inspiring art. Walking into the space each morning, she felt a surge of pride. This wasn't luck. This was hers. Her parents still didn't know. To them, she was just freelancing. That was fine. This wasn't about them anymore. Money gave her freedom, but it was in the little things she felt it most. Enrolling in a ceramics class without guilt. Buying groceries without checking every price tag. Surprising Natalie with concert tickets just because she wanted to. Donating anonymously to a scholarship fund for art students who reminded her of herself at 18. Each act whispered the same message: you are no longer trapped. One night, Lauren sat alone in her apartment sketching in the quiet. Her phone buzzed a family group text. Stephanie posing with her BMW again, their parents glowing beside her. Lauren looked at the photo for a long time. Then she smiled, not with bitterness, but with something close to peace. She set the phone aside and turned back to her sketchbook. On the page, a new logo was forming, lines curving into harmony. For the first time in her life, she didn't need their recognition. She had built her own. At her next art class, Natalie leaned over her shoulder. "You know what I love about you? You really see people. You notice things others don't." Lauren blinked, touched. "No one's ever said that to me before." Natalie grinned. Then they weren't paying attention. Lauren laughed, genuine and free. Around her, the room buzzed with creativity, friends chatting, brushes scratching against canvas. For the first time, she felt it deep in her bones: she belonged. Not because of luck or money or proving herself to people who refused to see her, but because she had chosen her own path and along the way found people who chose her too. The engagement party glittered with chandeliers and champagne flutes. Held at the Hamilton Country Club, the venue exuded prestige: high ceilings, polished marble floors, and waiters gliding gracefully with trays of hors d'oeuvres. Lauren stepped into the ballroom, the soft fabric of her new dress brushing against her legs. She had chosen it carefully, elegant, but understated, a quiet armor for the night ahead. She scanned the room. Her parents stood near the center, radiating pride. Stephanie, draped in a designer gown, clung to her fiancé Bradley's arm as guests fawned over her. It felt like every eye in the room was drawn to Stephanie, the star of the evening. Lauren lingered at the edges, sipping champagne, invisible as always. The evening moved through speeches, laughter, endless praise. Lauren half listened, her mind drifting. She was considering slipping out early when the sound of a glass clinking pulled her attention. Her father stood at the center of the room, beaming, glass raised. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us to celebrate Stephanie and Bradley's engagement." Polite applause filled the air. Lauren clutched her glass tighter. Her father continued, As you all know, our daughter has always been exceptional. Her achievements in real estate, her leadership, her grace. And now she begins this new chapter with Bradley. Lauren's stomach twisted. She braced herself. And to ensure they start their life together with everything they deserve, he said proudly, Diana and I have decided to sell our family home. A hush swept the room. Then gasps, followed by admiring murmurs. Lauren froze. Our home has been in the family for generations, her father went on. But what greater legacy than to help our daughter build hers? The proceeds will go toward their wedding and the purchase of a new condo. The crowd erupted in applause. Lauren could barely breathe. She pushed through the crowd until she reached her parents near the bar. Her voice trembled. You're selling the house for Stephanie's wedding? Her father turned, still flushed with pride. Yes, it's a good price too. The timing couldn't be better. But that house has been in our family for decades. Grandmother would be heartbroken. Her mother waved a dismissive hand. She would understand. Family supports family. Lauren's hands shook. But this isn't just support. You're giving up everything for her. Her father's eyes hardened. You don't understand, Lauren. Stephanie has always been our real success story. The sacrifices we make for her are worth it. The words landed like a slap. What do you mean by that? She whispered. Her mother glanced nervously around. This isn't the time. No, Lauren said firmly, voice rising. I need to understand. Why has Stephanie always been the one who deserves everything? Why was I never enough? Her father exhaled, shoulders heavy. Lauren, we never planned to tell you this way. Her mother's face softened with guilt. You were adopted. The world tilted. Adopted? Lauren repeated the word foreign on her tongue. Her father nodded. We brought you home as an infant. Stephanie is our biological child. Her mother reached for her arm. We tried to love you the same, but it was different. Lauren stepped back, her chest heaving. Different? How? Silence. The pieces slammed together, the denied ballet lessons, the second-hand laptop, the forgotten birthdays, the endless praise heaped on Stephanie. She had spent her life believing she was simply less lovable. Now she saw the truth. She had never been theirs in the same way. Stephanie approached, curiosity flickering in her eyes. They told you, Lauren turned sharply. You knew her sister hesitated, then nodded. Since I was 16, I found the papers. 12 years. 12 years Stephanie had watched her struggle, had seen her confusion and longing, and said nothing. You let me believe it was my fault, Lauren said, her voice breaking. That I wasn't enough. All this time. Stephanie's expression hardened. It wouldn't have changed anything. You're not like us. You never were. Lauren staggered back as though struck. Around them, the party continued, guests, laughing glasses, clinking music swelling. But for Lauren, the world had gone silent. She looked at her parents, the people she had begged for love her entire life. They avoided her eyes. She looked at her sister, radiant and cruel, basking in a legacy built on exclusion. And for the first time, she stopped begging. The revelation reframed everything. Children who grow up feeling lesser often internalize the idea that they are inherently flawed. But in Lauren's case, the truth was external favoritism rooted in bloodlines. From a clinical perspective, the trauma of discovering adoption late in life can trigger identity collapse. But it can also paradoxically provide clarity. The problem was never her worth. The problem was their inability to love beyond biology. Lauren stepped out onto the terrace, cool night air hitting her face. Stars glittered above, indifferent to human cruelty. She gripped the railing, trying to steady her breath. For years, she had dreamed of understanding why. Now she knew. The answer hurt more than silence ever had. But it was also liberating. Because if their love had never been real, she could stop chasing it. When she finally turned back to the room, she saw her parents laughing with Stephanie, their perfect family of 3. Lauren slipped out quietly. As the ballroom doors closed behind her, she felt both broken and free. Her life, her future, her worth, none of it needed their permission anymore. Lauren once believed that families were unbreakable bonds, that blood was destiny, that parents were permanent anchors. But after the revelation at Stephanie's engagement party, she understood a harder truth. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't where you belong. For weeks afterward, she moved through life in a haze. The city streets seemed sharper, the cold more biting. Work at her design studio kept her busy, but at night, loneliness pressed down like a heavy quilt. She replayed the moment in her head. You were adopted. Stephanie is our biological child. The words had cut her open, but they had also explained everything. For the first time, she stopped blaming herself. She didn't cut her adoptive parents off completely, not yet. She sent polite thank you texts, answered phone calls with restrained civility, and mailed them modest gifts on birthdays. But the warmth, the desperate hunger for their approval, was gone. When her mother chirped, "Don't forget about your family," Lauren responded softly, "I haven't. I've just learned the definition is bigger than I thought." The silence on the other end told her they didn't understand. Then came the letter. It was from Margaret Collins, a name Lauren didn't recognize at first. Inside a careful confession, "I am your biological mother. I was 19 when I gave you up. I hoped you'd have the opportunities I couldn't provide. I never stopped thinking of you." Lauren's hands shook as she read. Unlike the cold confession at the engagement party, this letter brimmed with regret and love. Margaret hadn't erased her. She had remembered every year. Weeks later, they met in a quiet cafe. Margaret had Lauren's hazel eyes, her artistic hands. The first words trembled out, "Thank you for meeting me." They spoke for hours. Margaret told stories of being young, frightened and alone, of choosing adoption not out of indifference, but out of desperate hope. She showed photos of Lauren's half-siblings, Thomas, a photographer, and Elaine, a ceramicist. Both artists like her. "They've always known about you," Margaret said, tears glistening. "We celebrated your birthday every year." For Lauren, the ache began to soften. She had lost one family, but gained another one that had always carried her in their hearts. Alongside her birth family, Lauren's circle of friends grew into something steady, grounding. Natalie, the nurse with the infectious laugh, became her confidant. The art class community welcomed her as one of their own. Colleagues at Thompson Creative Studio admired her not as the overlooked daughter, but as a leader, a visionary. These people became her chosen family. Dinners filled with laughter replaced tense Sunday gatherings. Weekend hikes and art sessions replaced the hollow performances of her childhood. One evening, around a table cluttered with empty plates and wine glasses, Natalie raised her glass. To Lauren, proof that family isn't who you're born to, but who shows up. The toast made Lauren's eyes sting. For the first time, she felt claimed not out of obligation, but out of love. But even as her life blossomed, Lauren couldn't forget the child she had once been, the 10-year-old clutching a flyer for art lessons told it was too expensive. She thought of all the Laurens in the world, children with talent, but no support, dreams dismissed as impractical luxuries. So she founded the Lauren Thompson Arts Foundation, funded quietly from her lottery winnings. Its mission to provide scholarships and mentorship to young artists from disadvantaged backgrounds. When the first group of teenagers walked into their sponsored art camp, their eyes wide with wonder, Lauren felt something break open inside her. She saw herself in their faces, hungry for validation, desperate to be told they mattered. She stood before them and said, Art isn't just decoration, it's survival. It's how we tell the world who we are. Don't let anyone convince you it's not worth it. Their applause was tentative, but their smiles were radiant. That night she wept not from sorrow, but from fulfillment. Lauren's journey reflected a profound psychological shift. From external validation to internal worth, she no longer sought love from those unwilling to give it. She built it within and around herself. From victim to creator, what once was pain became fuel for purpose. From scarcity to abundance. The child denied art lessons created a foundation, ensuring others would never hear too expensive again. This transformation is a textbook case of post-traumatic growth, where suffering becomes the soil for empathy and resilience. Months later, she visited her parents briefly. Their condo felt smaller, diminished. Stephanie was absent, busy planning yet another luxury purchase. The conversation was polite but strained. When Lauren left, her mother hugged her awkwardly. "You've changed," she said softly. Lauren smiled. "I've grown." Driving away, she realized she no longer carried the ache of needing more from them. She had found enough elsewhere. On Christmas Eve, a year later, Lauren hosted her own gathering. Friends, colleagues, and her birth family filled her brownstone with laughter. The walls glowed with art, the table overflowed with food. As midnight struck, she looked around the room, at Natalie telling a story with wild hand gestures at Thomas, snapping candid photos at Elaine, placing handmade ornaments on the tree, at Margaret watching her with quiet pride. Lauren raised her glass. To family, the kind we choose, the kind that chooses us back, and to art, the thing that saved me. May it save many more. The room erupted in cheers. For the first time, Christmas wasn't a wound. It was a homecoming.